The fires are burning low here tonight in Rivendell, and the shadows that dance on these walls tell many dark stories of the past. The mist is thick over the river, and the air is chill, but that is nothing compared to the cold we speak of now. Sit close, dear traveller, and listen well, for these are not tales for idle ears. This is the tale of the Nine, the Black Riders, and the dark path that led noble men to become wraiths bound to Sauron's will. They are forever enslaved, their names burned from memory by time, and their faces lost even to their own minds. They were once great kings among men, proud and strong, warriors and lords in their own right. The West knew of their deeds, and they were sung of even here in Rivendell before the world changed, and before the shadows fell. But Sauron, he knew the hearts of men. He saw in them ambition, the thirst for power and the thirst for eternal life. These were noble men once, but their hunger, hidden in the deep chambers of their souls, would be the poison he would use to unmake them. 9 rings he gave to them, each wrought in secret, and each a link in the invisible chains that would bind them to his darkness. The rings themselves held powers that men could not resist. Oh, they granted gifts, these gleaming bands of gold and silver, gifts beyond the measure of mortal kind. Those who wore them became mighty, their years stretched thin across the centuries. They grew wise and powerful, and yet they began to see things beyond the world of the living, shadows and whispers beyond the veil of flesh. But Sauron did not gift these rings out of generosity. He knew well what they did. The very gifts of the rings were their doom, for they slowly drew these men into another realm, a twilight between life and death, where their bodies and wills weakened and their minds became his to shape. A shadow grew around their hearts, an emptiness that only the ring could fill, and the longer they clung to it, the more they faded from the world they had once ruled. The Witch King of Angmar. I'm sure you've heard of him. He is the most terrible of the 9, the one who leads them, but he was not always a nameless terror. They say he was once a proud king from the north, a lord whose name had vanished into the darkness he now serves. His tale is the grimmest, for he was the first to fall, or so they say, and the first to pledge his soul unknowingly to Sauron's power. He wore his ring the longest, and thus he suffered the longest, and in him the others saw their fate, though they did not understand it at first. Then there was Camul, the Black Easterling, the shadow of the East. Fierce he was, cunning and hungry for knowledge. Camul was a lord of the Easterlings, a warrior who sought the secrets of the ancients. To him the ring was a key to a power that he thought could rival even the elves of old. But he too became ensnared, and as his form began to wither, he grew to fear even the touch of sunlight. He took refuge in the shadows, and the eyes that had once searched the heavens grew dim, seeing only the darkness of Sauron. And so it was, one by one, that the rings did their work. They held out at first. Each of them fought the slow descent into darkness, but the magic was too strong, and each king felt his soul erode bit by bit, until nothing remained but shadows and whispers. In the end, each of them faded completely, becoming neither dead nor alive, but bound to the will of Sauron, whose power held them like puppets on strings. In time they lost all memory of who they had been, their kingdoms crumbled to dust, and their names were forgotten by all. Only echoes of their former selves lingered, vague flickers of memory that tortured them like ashes of a fire long gone cold. They remember enough to know what they had lost, and that, perhaps, is Sauron's cruelest victory. That they know they were once kings, lords, heroes, and now they have become nothing. And so they became the Nazgûl, the Ringwraiths, Sauron's most faithful servants. You would know them as the Black Riders, perhaps, and I have seen them myself once, long ago, riding cloaked and hooded, swords in hand, searching for their master's prey. They are the empty ones, no longer bound by life or death, wandering like shadows in the twilight. I have felt their cold, the deathless chill that clings to them, colder than any winter wind. But the ring, oh, the ring that they seek, it calls to them, binds them as tightly as the chains that Sauron forged for them in the darkness. They are driven by that call, ceaselessly hunting, for they know that the one ring is their only hope of escaping the emptiness that devours them from within. It is the promise of their master's triumph, the lure that drives them forth night and day, an unquenchable hunger that will never be filled. Do not think them mindless, though, these Nazgûl, for they remember enough of the world, enough of the faces and the voices they once knew. They hate the living, not because they are commanded to, but because the sight of life reminds them of their own emptiness. They cannot bear the touch of daylight, for it sears them with memories of what they once were. They despise us who yet draw breath and see the sun, and it is a hatred that runs as deep as their servitude to Sauron. Beware the Nine, traveller, for they know neither pity nor mercy, only the hunger to return to their master's side, to bring him the One Ring, and to taste, if only briefly, the power that they once believed was theirs. They will ride without rest, without hesitation, until at last they have what they seek. And woe to any who cross their path, for they are deathless now, bound to Sauron's will until the end of all things. Their voices haunt the dreams of many mortals, and in the dead of night, echoes of what they once were haunt the dreams of any unlucky enough to have seen them. And though we do not speak of them here, there are some who remember, for the Nine are no mere legend. They're out there, somewhere, hiding in the shadows to prey upon mortal souls. And so there you have it, dear traveller, the tale of the Nine, those proud kings and warriors who sought to extend their reach beyond the bounds of mortality, only to fall into endless servitude. Now they ride as phantoms, consumed by the very power they sought to wield. Their tale is one of warning, for men, even the mightiest, are still mortal, and mortal flesh and spirit are fragile when exposed to the powers of the unseen realm. So remember this as you go forth in your life. Power is a double-edged blade, and the greater it seems, the greater the cost to those who wield it unwisely. Let the fate of the Nine be a warning, for they sought immortality, and in seeking to escape death, they found themselves in a hellish existence, bound to the darkness until the end of days.